Council. We'll call the meeting to order. For the record, it is July 23rd, 2024 at 4:30 in the afternoon. We'll begin this City Council work session with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Cavanagh.
Here.
Councilman Taylor.
Here.
Councilman Overton.
Here.
Councilman Whitlock.
Here.
Councilwoman Strader.
Here.
Mayor Simonson.
Here. Next up is adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Strader.
I don't see any changes that are needed to the agenda, so I move that we adopt the agenda as published.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, to adopt the agenda as published. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Up next is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Strader.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for the mayor to sign and clerk to attest.
Second.
I have a motion, and a second, to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is agreed to. There are no items moved from the consent agenda, so we will move on to Department Commission reports. First item up is item 14, which is approval of the fiscal year 2024 amended revenues and expenditures in the amount of $241,358,902. Jenny, is this item for you? And by my notes, you get the next three as well.
Hello, Mayor, Council. Item number 14 is approval of our amended budget. Throughout the year, these budget amendments came before you. This is a formalized process so that we can publish in the newspaper for our final fiscal year 24 amended budget.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
I move that we approve item 14, the fiscal year 2024 amended revenues and expenditures in the amount of $241,350,902.
Second.
I have a motion, and a second, to approve item 14. Is there any discussion? If not, Mr. Neri, can this be a voice, or do you need, these need to be roll calls because they're dollar figures?
Because as you just noticed, Mr. Mayor, you can do a voice vote.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the item is agreed to. Next up is item 15, which is tentative approval of fiscal year 2025 proposed revenues and expenditures in the amount of $255,534,110.
This is the next step for our fiscal year 25 proposed budget. This will allow us again to publish our budget notice in the paper for our public hearing in August. So this number is a little higher than the value that was presented in during budget workshops. And the reason is 76 million of that is continuation of projects from carrying forward from fiscal year 24 to 25.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Then if not, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schrader.
I move that we approve item 15 and move forward with a tentative approval for the purposes of publishing it for the public hearing on August 20th of the fiscal year 2025 proposed revenues and expenditures in the amount of $255,534,110.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 15. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick, I want to thank Councilmember Strader, Council Vice President Strader, for coming and leading the ship tonight while I am being waterlogged in Orlando. Just a brief comment, Mr. Mayor, because I think there's been a little bit of chatter in the news over the past week since our last budget hearing, and I think that there's a couple of important points to make. Some have characterized this as the mayor's budget. I've heard some chatter within City Hall that this is now the City Council's budget. And I think it is important that we as a team acknowledge that this is our community's budget. And I am supportive of this motion to bring forth a budget to the public for their comments. Every year we invite the public to make their feelings known about this budget. But I think that this year, more than any other year, their feedback is going to be incredibly critical. So I appreciate the motion maker, appreciate the second, and really look forward to hearing from our community between now and August when we formalize the budget to see what our community's feedback is on this proposed budget. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your hard work, staff's hard work, and I appreciate the motion maker for bringing forth this item for consideration.
Thank you. Council, any additional comments? Okay. Then, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and item 15 is agreed to. Next item is item 16, declaring the intent to collect foregone property taxes for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $504,546.
Mayor, Council, just a side note, this amount was a little different than what we presented in the budget workshop. And the reason is we received updated values from Ada County just right after our budget workshop. So as you recall, during our budget workshop, it's around 470 million or 470,000. Now it's 504.
Is there any questions for staff? Okay. Then next up would be item 17, which is resolution number 24-2464, a resolution declaring the intent to collect foregone property taxes for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $504,546.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
I'm happy to make a motion on this based on the work that we did in our workshop sessions for the budget. I believe our collective intent was to declare our intention to collect foregone property taxes for fiscal year 2025. I move that we approve this resolution in the amount of $504,546.
Second.
Having a motion and a second to approve item 17. Is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
let's don't know how to start this. If you'd asked me last year if I would have been voting in favor of foregone election, I would have told you absolutely not. I participated in budgets for the city at different spots within the city for 20 years. I've never seen a year come up like this year. It seems like every spot that this mayor and city council could get hit from, everybody wanted more money. And when we got hit with a SAFER grant that none of us saw coming, it put us in a position that I have never seen a city council or this one placed into. It would be easy for me to stand up on principle and say no to this. It would be very easy. The problem is, I made a promise that I don't want to see anything affect the value of our public safety, anything affect our employees, training, travel. There are COLAs coming forward. We need to make sure that not only we hire the best, but we retain the best. And we don't get that by trying to go through and trying to cut everything to the bone to try to make this work. We have to make sure that we still have the best employees for this city, that we take care of them. We have to make sure that when the handle goes down, the toilet flushes, and when the faucet gets turned, the water goes on. And when they call for public safety, they get not just public safety, we get the best public safety in the state of Idaho. That we take care of the small things because we take care of our police department and our fire department. So I don't know that it can be said too often that we're a group of 6 people up here and we all look at this just slightly different. But on this matter, I think no matter what the vote is, we all agreed that there was no amount of money that we could try to cut away from this budget this year that got this topic off the table. And we're here because of things beyond our control that this year we have to take and pass. And I do this never thinking I'd be placed in this position and knowing it's the right thing for the city going forward. But it needs to be said on why we're doing it.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
Yeah, I think that was very well said, and I'll add to that. Part of my thought process going into this budget was that given the challenges the council member Overton has mentioned that it was very important that we go through a process of not only taking a look at the resources available to help us absorb the safer grant opportunity, but that we also are looking for opportunities to economize. And I came away from our budget workshops very encouraged that not only did we find opportunities to economize in that process, but that process will continue for the next couple of weeks. And again, not looking to slash budgets, but looking for any opportunities that we may have missed between now and August 20th. So with that rigor around that proper process, I am in favor of declaring our intent to collect the foregone revenue, and would note similar feelings that I never wanted us to be in a position to have to do this, but I do feel that it is the fiscally responsible path that we must take.
Any additional comments from council? Oh, and I know this is not near the decision-making point. That will still come at a later point in time in that context. But I did have a conversation last night with a member of the legislature, not one that wrote an op-ed, but others. And I went through and I showcased 0, 1.9, 3, and 1.6. That's what we've taken the last 4 years as a city, not even up to the full 3%. And we had a great conversation about the purpose and role of foregone. Last year, budget could have come forward with the 3% just to save for something else in the future, but we chose to ask for the money when we felt the money was appropriately needed. So that's what this foregone is there for. You know, we've had very fiscally prudent budgets the last 4 years that I'm, at least from my perspective, and this is helping address issues that came after our last year's budget process. You know, so I just want to put that back out there as we move into the dialogue moving forward, that yes, we all may have different opinions on whether or not foregone should even exist in our society, you know, from a policy standpoint. But I think that there's it's important to showcase that the city has been fiscally prudent in this decision point. And if foregone were to go away as a tool and a lever, I think any city would be hard pressed to always just take the 3%. You know, it just becomes part of that thing as compared to identifying revenue when you need it to meet shared goals and objectives. And that's what this is really about from my perspective. So appreciate you indulging me, but understanding that that will be the conversation to get to where we need to be as a community together. So with that, ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh,
No.
Taylor,
No.
Overton,
Aye.
Strader, Whitlock.
Aye.
Aye.
3 ayes, 2 nays, and the resolution is approved. We'll move forward to August as well. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you to the team. Appreciate you all to get us to this next step, and we'll see you before too long. So with that, we'll continue down our financial discussion and go into item 18, which is a public hearing for a proposed fall 2024 fee schedule of the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department. Mr. White, pleasure to see you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thanks for having me tonight. Like Mr. Mayor just said, in front of you are our fees for the next activity guide we plan to put out. A couple notes here is that all these fees do meet our cost recovery philosophy that we've established in our department for all of our fees. And some other, I guess, notes is there's a couple that are significantly increased, and that's kind of false leading to the fact of, yes, there are increases, but that's added classes and added hours. So one went from just having 1 day a week to now 5 days a week type of thing. So that's why you see that huge increase there. It's just a matter of more classes offered. It's really what it comes down to. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, council. Any questions for staff? Okay. This is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone on this item to provide testimony on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No one has signed up.
Okay. Is there anybody present that would like to come forward and provide testimony on this item or online? Use the raise your hand feature. Seeing no one coming forward or raising their hand online, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton,
move that we close the public hearing. Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed nay. The ayes have it, and the public hearing is closed. Next item up is item 19, which is resolution number 24-2462, a resolution adopting the fall 2024 fee schedule of the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department, authorizing the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department to collect such fees and providing an effective date. Do I have
Mr. Mayor, I
Councilman Whitlock?
move that we approve resolution number 24-24. Resolution adopting the fall 2024 fee schedule of the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department, reference Meridian Parks and Recreation Department, to collect such fees and providing an effective date.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 24-2462. Is there any discussion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Overton,
Aye.
Strader,
Aye.
Whitlock.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries. The item is agreed to. Next item up is the City of Meridian Public Works Department Design Standards Update. Mr. Stewart. And as Warren comes forward, we just celebrated his 15 years of service with the city yesterday. So thank you, Warren, for what you've given to the community, and thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And it's been a pleasure serving with all of the employees and council and mayors. It's been a lot of fun. So, Mayor, members of the City Council, grateful for the opportunity to meet with you tonight and talk about this topic. So there are kind of in the Public Works Department three major documents that kind of control how things are constructed and how we do things in the water and sewer and even streetlight world. And they are the Idaho Standards for Public Works Construction, which are established by the state of Idaho. And then we have the City of Meridian supplemental specifications, which supplement or modify certain things in the Idaho standards. And then there's the design standards, which I'm here to talk about tonight. The design standards are sort of the City of Meridian's preferences on how we like designers who put together plans to do things and to organize things so that when the systems are all constructed, they are easier to operate and to maintain. So we go through a process about every 3 to 5 years to update these standards because technical requirements can change and our preferences and what materials are available can change. And we have just completed that process. The last time we did this was in 2019. So it's been a while and we have created this document. We went through a pretty robust, we feel, public outreach effort. And I think you, in your packets, got a letter from the BCA kind of outlining that. And of course, as developers, I'm sure they'll never tell you that they're giddy about any kind of regulation, but we had a good discussion. I think they felt pretty, like things had gone forward in a pretty fair way. So I'm here tonight to seek your feedback and hopefully get your nod to go ahead and put together a resolution, which we can bring back in the next couple of weeks to actually make these official. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Warren. Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
Warren, I don't have a question, is more of a kudos to you. Because that wasn't just a letter from the BCA. That was a, wow. Meridian stood up and came to us where other communities aren't and involved us in a process. And we didn't have to, and we did. And I think that's kind of what sets us apart from some other communities around here. And my hat's off to you and the hard work you did, building those relationships, including the BCA and what the 500 groups that they represent within the BCA. That's a tremendous opportunity for us to show what we are as a transparent form of government and how we operate. Don't ask me to try to critique what's in those standards. I leave that to the subject matter experts. But you guys have done a fantastic job, and kudos to you for all the hard work, to all of you and your staff.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Warren, this is great. I learned a lot more about design standards than I thought I would. I'm still trying to understand some of it, but could you kind of tail on what Councilman Overton asked? Could you highlight maybe one of the bigger issues that some of the industry folks outlined in terms of, hey, we'd like to see a change here or there? Could you kind of just give us a sense of some of the accommodations that you had made to incorporate some of their comments into the final product?
Yeah, when we initially went out with the design standards, I think they came back with a list of comments. I want to say there was probably over 40 comments that came back. I was going to look and see if I had that. Yeah, I don't have it actually numbered, but there's pages of comments. We worked through all of those comments. At the end of the day, there was 5 basically things that were on the last round. So I went through 3 different rounds of discussion and revision and discussion and revision. And some of the things that were in that last 5 was easement widths for certain depths of sewer. So in other words, as the sewer gets deeper and deeper into the ground, it requires a wider and wider easement because the trench that you're going to open up gets bigger and bigger. And so there was some debate and discussion about that. Trying to think what some of the other ones were off the top of my head. I read it earlier today, but of course you get up here and you forget everything you read. So that was one of them. One of them was about distances for common driveways or or driveways in particular, like if we have a sewer line down a ditch, how far they can go without having to put a turnaround so that we don't have to back out for 500 feet, which is pretty dangerous with some of the big trucks and stuff that we have to do. So we worked through all of those. I think even in that last 5, we were able to get to a point of pretty much resolution on 3 out of the 5. And there were essentially 2 of them that I said, well, I've gone as far as I'm going to go. And they're like, fair enough. We've hammered out a lot of things and made some good progress. So if you're interested in seeing the comments, I'm happy to provide those to you and whatnot. But.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick follow-up. I'd be interested in just kind of seeing the comments. I always find the process of working with those who are to follow the rules and regulations that are set forth, to how to incorporate their input. So I would be interested, but I would just echo what Councilman Overton said. I think it's great to know that there was significant outreach and effort to accommodate, to listen, to understand. As we all know that those who have to, when you're actually doing the work, and it might be a little bit different than those who have to oversee and ensure the safety of it. So I'm really happy to see that there was sounds like we found the sweet spot in terms of ensuring a safety and consistency in the design of the city and the infrastructure and meeting the needs of those who do the work. So I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Whitlock.
Warren, you mentioned it's been since 2019 since we've updated these. If we hold that same schedule, it's probably just on the eve of turning the calendar to 2030. If we do an update again in 4 or 5 years or 6 years, do you think, as you step back and look at the city and the growth that we anticipate and the desirable place that Meridian is to live, work, and raise a family, have you incorporated the right things to get us to 2030?
Well, I guess the short answer to that, we've incorporated everything that we are aware of. You don't know what you don't know. And so the future, even in the world of public works infrastructure, pipe materials, construction methodologies, things like that can change, even in tools that you have in your toolbox to address different things. So I think we have had experience over the past 5 years with the existing design standards. We saw what was working, what wasn't working, where there were gaps that needed to be addressed. And we've tried to address all of those. And we've tried to look at how we want to do things in the future. And so my answer is we've done everything that we can think of, everything we know, but I don't know if there's going to be something out there. We may get 5 years, we may only get 3, and we decide, oh, there's a few issues, we need to update the design standards again. So we'll see.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
Thank you, Warren. I also just want to provide the feedback that I appreciate your outreach process and working closely with stakeholders to ensure that we're getting a great outcome and listening to concerns. That's the right way to do it. So thank you. And do you need a motion tonight? Just a head nod from everybody to bring a resolution? What's kind of the process that you need to get this forward?
I'll look to Bill, but I think just a head nod, but.
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Schroeder, we are looking at this direction to move forward. Yeah, we will bring back a resolution probably on your August 13th meeting, basically adopting these standards. And we look back, and that was 19 was when we did it last. Be similar to that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Schrader.
Great. It sounds like everyone is in favor of that happening, right? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item is item 21, which is the draft integrated 5-year work plan. Heather.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. So I'm here as a follow-up on the discussion of the integrated 5-year work plan from ACHD. Their draft is currently in the public comment period. It was released, I believe, on July 11th and is open through August 14th. And originally my plan was to share with you my draft letter. That was my plan this morning, just kind of reiterating some of our priorities and addressing any questions or concerns that we have with the draft. But I received some additional information just a couple hours ago, so I'm going to need to kind of reevaluate that. So instead, I'm just going to kind of go over the lists that I've been working on and just call your attention to a few items instead. So overall, you'll see a lot of delays, which are in orange. So 14 road and intersection projects that we had originally programmed were delayed on this new draft work plan. 9 of those, or just 9 out of the top projects were deferred and are no longer being programmed. So 3 of these identified here in red on the screen, those are in our top 10. And overall in the entire list, and I can kind of scroll through, 4 of those are in South Meridian. So some of this is just going through, and we'll emphasize this in our letter, just calling attention to some of the changes. So I'll just kind of scroll to show you the delays and some of those that were removed. So there's quite a few. We anticipate this is probably due to inflation and increased project costs and their budgetary constraints. It's not all bad news, though. There are 10 projects that remain on schedule with no changes to design, right-of-way, or construction years. And many of these are within the top 15. And so you'll see these here in yellow. There were no changes proposed to any of these projects, which is good news. In Linder Road, the overpass, as we continually emphasize as being important, is still remains the same. I do want to call your attention to two projects specifically. Number 16 here is the Black Cat Franklin to Cherry. This project was originally programmed for design in 2028-29, and it has now been removed from the integrated 5-year work plan. Instead, it appears that they will be making changes only to the railroad crossing in 2029. And those are in coordination with some of the state's programming, and there will be no other capacity improvements. And I believe this is one that Councilman Cavanagh has brought up several times, and I know he's not able to join, I think, anymore. But we're going to call that out on our letter, just kind of asking why. The second project is Amity, Locust Grove to Eagle. This was also removed from the programmed list. Originally, this was scheduled for design in 2025 through 2026. So just a couple projects that kind of stood out as having concerns over. And I can continue, or we can stop there before I just go over some of the community programs. That's just kind of a high level review of the roads and intersection projects.
Council, any questions so far?
And then on the community programs front, which are shown here, 6 projects have been removed from the program list. 3 of them will be combined, like the Linder Road Community Program projects. They'll just be combined with the regular road and intersection improvements. So that'll kind of bump around this list for the next iteration. We did have 2 projects advance, which is good news. So those are in green. The first is the Main Street and King Street pedestrian crossing. That'll just be deployed as part of the rapid project implementation program in 2026. So that one advanced. And the other one that advanced is the sidewalk near Coal Valley Christian School that we had identified. So that one did move forward. But other than that, there was a lot of delays. There were some that didn't change, but again, I don't have a ton to share with you that advanced. So that's really my high level summary. And I will put together a letter with some of the revisions from the updated information I have and circulate that. And it can include any comments that you might have after this discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
Thank you, Heather. When they have removed projects, did they provide a rationale for those decisions? I would be curious to get more feedback. Is that kind of part of the process you're hoping will happen? Help me understand that part.
I'm hoping that will happen as well. I have the same questions. Obviously, this is my first time going through this, but at this time, we don't have any information as to why they were removed from programmed. The list just says deferred, not programmed. So I don't have any other reasoning at this time. And part of the letter emphasizes that this is important. We'd like to understand the shift in priorities, how this impacts just all of our corridors.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
Heather, thank you very much. I mean, you're delivering some kind of bad news to the community on some of our important projects that have been either delayed or removed. Particular nature was number 16. We talked about it, not just this year, we've talked about it in years past, and it's only going to get busier. And if I understood you correctly, they've removed the roadway construction project and are only going to be focused on the railroad crossing, but that sits at 5 years away in 2029. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's disappointing, to say the least. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you this, 2 of them were removed around the square mile I lived in, so maybe I did something to piss them off. It's the best, it's good of an idea as anything, but in reality, I've met with the director. Obviously, costs are escalating, which means they have to make decisions, at least in relationship to a couple of those projects. I know there's been some other requests from the city, at least to put in some temporary signals in the short term to help address issues. They also have some additional items to review a roundabout, to maybe make some changes, improvements. And I think that there might be just trying to write up some areas initially, but costs obviously are a factor. The costs have gone to the point where they can't leave everything in that was programmed. And there are some impacts. Okay, well, we look forward to bringing maybe more information in a letter back in that concept and see where they go from here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Council, we've reached the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.